Alright. Hello, hello. Chainsaw Man chapter 143 just dropped, and we are going to talk about it. This is my fan art of Quan Chi. If you can't tell, I put a lot of heart and soul into this. That's her eye patch, and that's her twin katanas. Anyways, let's get into the chapter. So this chapter starts with the hybrids from last chapter discussing how they are going to go about making their terrorist attack impactful as possible so that Denji will respond. And this freaking psychopath, the Javelin Man, is he's telling others to target women and children and go for their limbs so that they can scream louder, which is a bit of a dramatic irony in that something similar happens to him in a couple of pages. And while they're doing that, the as they were about to transform, freaking Quan Chi shows up and cuts off their limbs instead. And before I go any further, I just want to say that this kind of reminds me of when the Darkness Devil chopped off everyone's arms in Hell. Cause Quan Chi's attack here is kind of timed to the rhythm of the bell of the clock, right? As soon as 5 o'clock hits and the bell rings, she, comes in and chops off their body parts. Whereas in the Darkness Devil fight, you see the frog kind of burps, and then the Darkness Devil does his thing. Let me see how I should do this. So I'm kind of seeing like a rhythm of massive attacks as, there's like a something goes on in the background. And then once that timer hits, the attack hits, which is kind of something that certain movies do. Because, let me think of an example in movies that does that. One is the new Spider-Man movie, the No Way Home, right? In the Peter's apartment scene, whereas he sensed something was wrong, and not the shocker, Electros, he had like a thing on his chest that was beeping, and then you can feel the tension goes up as the beeper kind of clocks in closer to being completed. But that's a bit of a side note. It's not really important. So Quan Chi cuts him up, and the Sword Man, he was all right. He got his trigger off, but that doesn't matter because Quan Chi just cuts him apart anyways. And Quan Chi is now a public safety officer again because you can tell by her, her suit. And she also, oops, that's not it. She reports back to the public safety guys about her job. So, which is kind of what I predicted last chapter, because Fumiko was ready. The public safety had someone on backup, because you can tell by how smug Fumiko was last chapter. So, Quan Chi reports back to the public safety, and then she roars at a kid to get him away from the crime scene, which is also the name of this chapter, RAR XD. Da, da, da. So the chapter ends with the the news kind of reporting on the terrorist attack. They blame the Church of Chainsaw Man for it, and they They reported it as like a gun attack. And then the public safety, they accused the church of harboring guns, which they apparently are, but the class president, or now the founder of the church, he doesn't know what's going on. And he's left out of the loop because he's just being used by everyone else. And this guy is a bit sketchy. So he orders everyone to go outside, all the combat members to go outside to maybe confront the public safety sector. And that's the end of this particular chapter. It's a pretty straightforward chapter, not a whole lot happened. But, well, a lot did happen, but like, not in terms of length. It's not the longest chapter to read through. Mm, ba, ba, ba. Is this pre-recorded? It's not. I just have some images loaded up. Honestly, I should do more pre-recorded stuff because I wouldn't stumble over my words as much. I wonder who spoke that last line. It's the old man. I think he's saying that, like, oh, I don't know anything. You don't know anything either, right? It's like he's saying that in like it's like how mafia be like, hey, you didn't see anything, right? That was a terrible attempt at an Italian accent. But anyways, it's kind of like the mafia, oh, you saw nothing, kind of thing. Okay, so the meat of this chapter is, obviously the Quan Chi part, but alright, so let's go over the key part as to how did the public safety sector know that the hybrids were going to do that? And the answer to that is going to be one of the hybrids is a spy for the public safety sector. Because from what we saw at the end, most of the church were probably not privy to what they were about to do. So it's probably one of the four that kind of leaked on what they were, the massacre they were about to commit. So to figure out which one did it, we should go over each of their characters first. And there's not a whole lot to go over, but we got some panels of dialogue in the beginning of this chapter. So let's start with the Javelin Man. So the Javelin Man, he's kind of a psycho, but he's also a bit, more practical. He doesn't seem like he's as much of a believer as the others, because he does say that, oh, I like how you think. So it's kind of suggesting that, he's okay with whatever process they use to get the job done. So he seems a bit more professional than the others, right? He's a bit more detached already. He seems to be a bit more experienced. And, that's a haircut of a psychopath right there. Okay, so that's the Javelin Man. And then we have the Whip Woman. So the Whip Woman is pretty old, and that's the she confirms that she's 82, and that's like the first confirmation we have as to the fact that devil hybrids, the weapon hybrids, they don't really age. And she is 82, and you can kind of see that she has the Asian grandma thing going on with the sunglasses and the way that she wears her coat. And we can kind of see, she's old, she's a bit arrogant, right? She thinks she's like superior human being. She's chosen by God. She is somewhat religious, but we don't know what the exact religion is because I doubt she's like actually into, you know, the cult as much, but she is religious. So that's the whip woman. Uh and then we have the sword man, Sugal. He's actually the only one of them that we know the name of. Actually, no, we know Baron, but I'll get to him in a bit. And he's probably the one that we can kind of rule out as a traitor, because we can see his. What we don't see his inner thoughts, but he does like say them out loud, and we can see them through his expressions. So he's struggling a bit on committing on, you know, killing kids, which is good because you don't want to be too quick to kill children. So he's trying to convince himself to kill the kids. He's trying to detach himself because, you know, he's telling himself this is God's message. This is God's what is it? Like his reason for me to be here. You know, and he's convincing himself to be a weapon. But the thing is, in the previous chapter, Denji kind of already made him like admit that a lot of the church's teachings are bullshit, especially about the some of the stuff about like the 5G and whatever. Bu- bu- bu. So that's Sugal, the sword man. And finally we have Barum. So Barum is text isn't showing up. Look at the Santa man. So Barum is probably who I think is the spy is here, if there is one, because even despite how, you know, psychopath he looks. So Barum, for some reason, Barum, you know, last chapter he went up to Denji and Fumiko instead of staying with the others, right? So he went up to Denji and Fumiko to give them a heads up on what's about to happen. We don't really know why he did that, other than just to flex. And then when he first appeared, the first thing he did was to drive Denji away from the church, right? Because if you remember in the chapter 139, Denji and Sugo were kind of doing a tour of the church, and while it wasn't going well, Barum kind of just showed up at the end and like ruined everything. He said some psychopathic shit and then drove Denji. Ooh, I burped. Drove Denji away, like right away, right? He's like, oh, I'm gonna kill Asa, I'm gonna kill whatever. So he was being a weirdo, and then he pushed Denji out of the church. And he was also the one that spearheaded this attack. He convinced the other hybrids to go on with this mission. So if he did all that with the plan of framing the church as like a violent organization so that the public safety sector can take care of them, that's kind of where I see his thing is going. The caveat against it is that like he does everything he says is against all that. He could be lying, but it's like he's been saying a whole lot about he wanting to see the real Chainsaw Man again. He doesn't care for Denji. He wants to see Pochita. So maybe he's just saying like a bunch of whatever, but right now I'm leaning towards him being the traitor inside the church. We'll probably find out pretty soon as to what happened to him, because he was up there with Denji and Fumiko. I can't imagine him just giving up without a fight if he's truly against it, right? So my prediction is that he's the spy and he just willingly, submits because he's on the other team. That's where I kind of see Barum going. But I also don't see that him being like completely lying about what he said previously. Because his name is Barum does mean balance in Turkish, I believe. So it's literally his name. So it's like he's not gonna be. I think he's still gonna represent the balance theme mainly. But yeah, that's about the end of this chapter. Let me go through the chapter again to see what I can discuss. Ba, ba, ba. Let's see. So I guess we can talk about some of the art, kind of art appreciation thing, because Quan Chi, I think choreography in Chainsaw Man isn't like usually the best, but I feel Fujimoto did a pretty good job this chapter in terms of planning out what happens in fights. Because in this chapter, when Quan Chi showed up, she cuts off the devil transformation triggers for two of them, right? So she shows up, she cuts off the legs, and then she cuts off the Javelin Man's arm, which he was reaching behind his back to pull. And then she cuts off the Whip Woman's hand. Because the Whip Woman, she snaps her fingers to activate her transformation. She cuts off Sugo's head, but it doesn't quite work out because Sugo's activation is on his arm. He pulls his arm out as like a unsheathing your sword kind of thing, which is the opposite of what the Katana Man did. Because the Katana Man, his sword is on his left hand, so it's not really the opposite. It's similar, but it's on the opposite side. So the choreography this chapter is exceptional. Well, I wouldn't say exceptional, but it's well planned. It's pretty good. And then, but there's also a bit of So usually after a break, I think Fujimoto's art just like becomes a lot better. But I don't think there was a break last week, so that doesn't really apply. You can kind of see some parts of the chapter that Fujimoto's art is a bit not rushed per se, but there's a bit of how do you say it? A bit of slight sloppiness that usually doesn't happen a lot. And it's not really anything like bad per se. It's more like I kind of noticed that these panel lines go through the panels. You get like little snippets of lines under the panels. So maybe Fujimoto was a bit, rushed this week. He had less time to work on some of the stuff this week, perhaps. But it's not really anything, anything that bothers me. Just something I noticed while going through rereading the chapter. Ba, ba, ba. But yeah, overall, pretty good chapter. There's another one next week, fortunately. So I'll be back to do another stream for that next week. And I think this is about it as far as what we could talk about. So I guess that's the end of the stream. Thanks for watching.